Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into what might be the biggest story in Florida real estate for 2025, a major market shift that's creating unprecedented opportunities for buyers, plus Governor DeSantis' bombshell proposal that could potentially eliminate property taxes for Florida residents. This is huge news that could reshape the entire landscape in the Sunshine State. Let's start with what's happening in Florida's real estate market right now. After years of skyrocketing prices and fierce competition among buyers, we're seeing a dramatic pendulum swing. The market has shifted significantly, creating what many experts are calling the best buyer's market Florida has seen in over a decade. This isn't just a slight adjustment. We're talking about a fundamental restructuring of negotiating power. The numbers tell the story clearly. Active listings across Florida have increased by nearly 34% compared to this time last year. In many counties, we're seeing 6 to 10 months of inventory, which officially puts us in buyer's market territory. For context, during the pandemic boom, most Florida markets had less than 1 month of inventory. Homes that would have received multiple offers above asking price within hours of listing are now sitting on the market for 45, 60, even 90 days. This shift is happening for several reasons. First, interest rates have remained stubbornly high compared to the rock-bottom rates we saw in 2020 and 2021. While rates have come down from their 7% peak, they're still hovering around 6%, which has significantly reduced buying power for many would-be purchasers. Second, we've seen a surge in new construction finally hitting the market, with builders completing projects that were started years ago. Third, many investors who bought during the pandemic boom are now looking to sell, adding to the inventory glut. What does this mean for buyers? Opportunity, real opportunity. I'm seeing buyers negotiate price reductions of 5–15% off asking prices. Sellers are offering concessions that would have been unthinkable just 18 months ago, paying for closing costs, offering home warranties, agreeing to necessary repairs, and even buying down interest rates for buyers. Some of my clients have successfully negotiated $30,000, $50,000 off listing prices in communities where nothing was negotiable just a year ago. For sellers, this is admittedly a challenging time. If you purchased your home before 2021, you likely still have substantial equity, but you may need to adjust your expectations about how quickly your home will sell and for what price. Homes that aren't priced competitively from the start are languishing on the market, accumulating days on market that ultimately hurt the final sale price. We're seeing price reductions become the norm rather than the exception. Now let's talk about the bombshell that could make this shift even more dramatic. Governor Ron DeSantis' property tax proposal for 2025. Just last month, DeSantis announced what he's calling the Florida First Tax Relief Plan, which aims to fundamentally transform how property taxes work in the state. The plan has two major components that could reshape Florida's real estate landscape. The first part of the plan is an immediate $5 billion property tax relief package specifically targeted at Florida residents with homestead exemptions. Under this proposal, every homesteaded property owner would receive approximately $1,000 in property tax relief for 2025. This isn't a reduction in your tax rate. It's actually a direct rebate check that would be sent to homeowners after they've paid their property taxes. But that's just phase one. The truly revolutionary part is phase two, which DeSantis has outlined for 2026. The governor has proposed completely eliminating property taxes on primary residences for Florida residents. Yes, you heard that correctly. The complete elimination of property taxes for homesteaded properties. This would make Florida the first state in the nation to take such a dramatic step. DeSantis explained his reasoning during a press conference in Naples. You have bought a house at a certain price. You could obviously afford that. You may have been taxed at that price at the time. Now you have local governments telling you, well, actually, no, your house is worth a lot more. Pony up more to us in the form of property taxes. Even with our homestead protections, people are still seeing significant increases. The governor went on to argue that property taxes fundamentally undermine the concept of truly owning your home. When you have to pay the government just to live in your own home that you've paid off, you don't really own it. You're effectively renting it from the government. This proposal would ensure Floridians genuinely own their primary residences. It's important to understand that this proposal only applies to primary residences with homestead exemptions. Investment properties, second homes, vacation rentals, and commercial properties would still be subject to property taxes. This is deliberately designed to benefit full-time Florida residents rather than investors or part-time residents. The political calculus here is pretty clear. DeSantis is positioning himself as a champion for Floridians against rising costs. During his announcement, he specifically contrasted his approach with a competing proposal from the state legislature that would have reduced the sales tax rate. DeSantis rejected that approach, saying, "Sales tax cuts benefit tourists and part-time residents. I want Canadian tourists and Brazilian tourists subsidizing the state and making it so Florida residents pay less taxes. I don't want to give Canadians a tax cut." Now, the obvious question is, how would the state make up for this massive loss in revenue? Property taxes are the primary funding source for local governments, schools, and emergency services. DeSantis and his team have outlined several potential funding mechanisms. First, they've proposed increasing the state's share of the documentary stamp tax on real estate transactions, particularly targeting higher value properties and those purchased by non-residents. Second, they've suggested implementing a state-level consumption tax on short-term rentals. Third, they've discussed redirecting a portion of the state's sales tax revenue to local governments to offset the lost property tax income. Critics of the plan, including many local government officials, argue that these revenue replacements would be insufficient and potentially unstable, especially during economic downturns when real estate transactions and tourism decline. The Florida Association of Counties has expressed concern that the proposal could lead to reduced services or force local governments to find other ways to generate revenue. Education advocates have been particularly vocal, as property taxes are a major funding source for public schools. The Florida Education Association has warned that without guaranteed replacement funding, school districts could face significant budget shortfalls that would impact teacher salaries and classroom resources. DeSantis has pushed back against these criticisms, arguing that local governments have seen their budgets balloon in recent years due to rising property values and assessments. During his announcement, he proposed creating a Department of Government Efficiency, or DOE, initiative that would audit local government spending and identify waste that could be eliminated without impacting essential services. We have major counties in this state that have had massive expansions of their budgets just in the last 5 or 6 years, DeSantis said. And the reason is they're getting more revenue from the property tax. Do those budgets need to grow by that much? I think the answer is probably going to be no. So what does all this mean for Florida's real estate market in 2025? The combination of a buyer's market and the potential elimination of property taxes could create a perfect storm that dramatically increases demand for primary residences in Florida. For current homeowners with homestead exemptions, this would be an enormous financial benefit. The average Florida homeowner pays between $3,000 and $8,000 annually in property taxes, depending on the county and home value. Eliminating this expense would be equivalent to receiving a significant pay raise every year. For retirees on fixed incomes, this could be the difference between struggling to stay in their homes and living comfortably. For potential home buyers considering a move to Florida, the elimination of property taxes would make homeownership substantially more affordable, potentially offsetting the impact of higher interest rates. A buyer purchasing a $400,000 home might save $6,000 to $8,000 annually, which could increase their buying power by $75,000 to $100,000 over the life of a 30-year mortgage. For real estate investors, the picture is more mixed. While investment properties wouldn't directly benefit from the tax elimination, the increased demand for primary residences could drive up property values across the board. However, if the state implements higher documentary stamp taxes on investment purchases or increases other fees to offset the lost property tax revenue, investors could face higher acquisition costs. The timeline for these changes is ambitious. The $1,000 rebate is proposed for the 2025 tax year, with checks potentially going out in early 2026. The complete elimination of property taxes for homesteaded properties is being targeted for the 2026 tax year. However, both proposals would require legislative approval, and the full elimination would likely require a constitutional amendment that voters would need to approve. The political reality is that while the $1,000 rebate has a good chance of passing in some form, the complete elimination